You're watching Gearz, brought to you by Ram Truck.
If you've looked into buying a new car or truck recently, you know that you can get just about everything that you can imagine right from the factory. Case in point, this Ram 1500 Longhorn Edition. I mean, this thing's got more bells and whistles than you can believe. Yeah, that's a lot different than when something like this rolled off the assembly line. But it's still not enough. You can always do something to a vehicle to make it better. The problem is, once a guy's invested this kind of money, he doesn't really want to spend a whole lot more, and he doesn't want to do something that might detract from the value or mess with his warranty. So, finding products that are easy to put on, affordable, and actually serve a real purpose are key to modifying a late model vehicle. And that's exactly what we're going to do with this thing. Okay, the biggest complaint that most people have with these four-door trucks is that these beds are really small. But most people don't want to invest in a long bed truck because that's like trying to park an aircraft carrier when you go to Home Depot. So making this bed more usable is what you want to do. Now, the first question is how to load things in the bed. It usually means you throw stuff in, then you got to climb up, get stuff back out. That gets old really quick. A simple solution to this problem is called the bed slide. Are we on your side? There we go. And all you have to do is center it up in your bed, drill a few holes, and bolt it in place. So now when you're ready to load or unload the bed, you just reach in and pull the lock, and the load comes to you. Now the bed slide will lock in various different positions so you can put it exactly where you want it. It also comes with adjustable tie downs so you can secure the load. Now I know some of you guys are looking at this going, well, you know, that's a nice trinket. It's not going to handle any real weight. Think again. The bed slide is rated at 1,500 pounds, so it'll even handle engines and transmissions. Okay, the next problem is carrying big stuff like ladders and canoes and wood and things like that. And if you don't want them hanging out the back of your truck, well, you need a racking system. But we'd kind of like the racks to disappear when we're not using them. And that's exactly the idea behind the InvisiRack system. Let's take a look. Now this system is just some rails that fasten to your bed sides with clamps, so there's no drilling or cutting or modifying the bed. Now, hidden within these rails is your racking system. So when you need some racks, you just extend the arms and lock them in place. Now you're ready to load some equipment. If you're thinking these racks are flimsy, well, they're not. They'll handle up to 500 pounds. The best part is, when you don't need the rack, it disappears. All right, the next thing we're going to deal with is a tonneau cover because it's kind of nice to protect your cargo when you got it in the bed. The problem is, how are we going to fit a tonneau cover when we have these racks mounted on top of the bed sides? Well, Truxedo has got a solution in this soft tonneau cover because these side rails are designed to mount to the side of the bed as opposed to on top. And just like the racks, they're held in place with clamps, so there's no drilling or modifying the bed. They're super easy to put on. Once the side rails are clamped in place, just fit the front support. Then unroll the cover and latch it in back. And finally, smooth out any wrinkles as you seal down the Velcro. Hey, welcome back to Gearz, where we are in the process of showing you some simple things that you can do to a late model truck that will make it more usable and not spend a fortune. And in just the span of a couple hours, we put on these retractable racks so you can carry big stuff up on top, a soft tuxedo tonneau cover to protect what's in the bed, and a bed slide so you can easily load and unload heavy stuff into the bed. And as you can see, all these modifications have actually made the truck look better than it did before. Now, speaking of making the truck look better, one thing that any four-wheel drive vehicle can benefit from is a little bit of a lift, especially in the front, because most trucks sit about 3 inches higher in the rear, and a lot of people like to at least level them out. So the question is it possible to put just a small lift on a vehicle without going through the cost and the labor of a full-on lift kit? Yeah, it's possible. Check it out. Now, I know you're expecting a big, massive lift kit with springs and shocks and all kinds of components, and that's just not the case. This comes from Daystar, and it's designed to lift that Ram 2.5 inches. And they do that with these big, heavy-duty urethane spacers. So they're not going to break on you, they're not going to wear out, they're not going to squeak, they're not going to mess up your stock suspension geometry or the ride of your rig. And the best part is, if you can take a vehicle apart, you can put these in. We're going to prove that to you. With the truck in the air and the tires off, unbolt the sway bar end links and disconnect the upper ball joint. Then just unbolt and remove the strut. Now all you have to do is install the stud extender on the strut, slide on the spacer, and you're ready to reinstall everything. Now, if you think that's easy, the rear is just as simple. With a jack under the rear end, just unbolt the sway bar end links and the shocks. Lower the axle down to remove the springs. Slide on the spacers, and finally, reassemble everything. Now for tires, we're going to put on a set of these Falcon Wild Peak ATs because these are great all-terrain tires for a street vehicle that's also going to wander off-road from time to time. Now the size we're using is 305/55/20. That puts it right at 33 inches tall and just about 12 inches wide. Now for wheels, we went to Raceline, got a set of these Renegade 5s. This is an aluminum 5-spoke wheel, so it's incredibly strong. And it also has a cool, rugged off-road look, which is perfect for Jeeps or trucks. Size we're using, 20x9. And the final result is right on the money. A little more lift, a little bigger tire, and a little better looking truck.
Now, quick tip. Brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs. Born to burn.
A lot of times when you're building a vehicle, you have to fabricate some custom hard lines for your cooling system, your radiator, transmission, whatever. And these lines need to have a bead rolled in the end so they seal properly to the rubber hose that they go to. Question is, how do you do that without investing in a bead roller? Well, Earl's Plumbing has got a solution for you with these little bead rollers. And basically, you just slide the proper size roller into the tubing and then tighten the middle nut. The rollers inside will slowly extend as you crank and roll a bead inside the tubing. Proving once again that having the right tools makes all the difference in the world. If you'd like to learn more tips that make your life easier in the shop, check out the tips page on the website. You know, the automotive world is constantly changing, not only in the vehicles that you can buy, but also in the modifications that people are doing to them. For example, a few years back, a typical enthusiast vehicle might have looked like this old Ford, with big, wide radial TA tires and centerline style wheels and hooker headers, a Holley carburetor, and an Isky cam under the hood. But today's enthusiast, his project might look more like this Tundra, where you have BBS wheels and Dixie Peck tires and computer programmer and a Cadback exhaust. But these sort of modifications, engine, suspension, wheels and tires, those have been around for the enthusiast since the beginning of the aftermarket. What hasn't been around is the ability for you to put a leather interior in your vehicle. Now, back in the day, you basically had three choices when it came to a custom leather interior. Number one, order it from the factory if it was available and spend a lot of money for it. Number two, have a custom shop stitch you one up and spend a lot of money for it. Or number three, go down to your local Walmart or Kmart and pick up one of these cheap slip-on covers and then try to pretend you had a custom interior. Well, fortunately, a company named Catskin decided that there needed to be another option when it came to a custom leather interior. Check it out. The first step of any cool interior is in the look and the design of it. And Catskin spends a lot of time developing a look and a feel that people will want to have in their vehicle.
We are the world leader in interior transformation. It's not just about the single seat or just covering the seat. It's about really changing your interior into a personal statement, a statement about your car.
We always like to say that we do the fifth interior, the one that the design guys really wanted, but they couldn't quite get into production because of cost or complexity.
Starting with top grain leather hides, the patterns are cut to exacting specs. From there, the pieces begin to get constructed into seat upholstery by adding padding and stitching and piping and various other components. And if you think this is all put together by a bunch of machines, think again. Every step is inspected and controlled by human hands, and they make the hardest things seem easy. And when they're done with it, out rolls some of the best seat upholstery kits on the market. Even the OEMs use this stuff.
We have very high standards when it comes to our leather suppliers to start with. Then we just have, it's a matter of just good business. I mean, if you want people to come back and buy your product again, our customers being the restylers, then you better have a really fine product. To back that up, let's take a look at our OEM relationships. We are in very tight with Mopar, with Ford. If you go to a Mopar dealership and you order a leather interior from a Mopar parts counter, that order is coming to Catskin. We fill that order. Same thing with Ford. Now, these companies, as you know, have very high standards when it comes to selling their products. So we passed all their rigorous testing with flying colors.
But having great upholstery kits don't mean a thing if they're too hard to put in. And that's where Catskin really shines, because their kits fit just like the factory upholstery.
This is a very highly engineered product. It fits precisely to the factory foam.
And all you have to do to get a kit is go on the Catskin website, scroll through the options, and find exactly the kit you're looking for. But if you don't want to do it yourself, there's a large installer network across the nation.
Now, once they've selected the design that they really want, they have to go to the next page where they're going to be offered, there's going to be a button that'll say installation. When they click on that button, they're going to see two choices. One way is a dealer option. If you find the interior you want, you can print out that sheet, you can take it to a dealer. Most dealers work with us. They'll be able to install that kit in your car. The other option, which might be better for the do-it-yourselfer, is to click on our network. We have a network of 2,500 authorized professionals, and those individuals, companies, are authorized to sell our product, and they are experts when it comes to installing the product.
So, whether you're driving something brand new or older, Get rid of that old seat upholstery and put some leather in there. And with you doing it yourself, leather is more affordable than it's ever been. And by using cat skin, leather looks better than it ever has. You know, a while back when we started the SLC project, people went crazy over the fact that they could build a supercar in their own garage. And of course, the questions started to come out about how to make these things race car fast. And of course, that brings up the concept of twin turbos. Now, since there is no bolt-on twin turbo system for an SLC, we figured that somebody needed to build one, so the guys that are building these cars would have that option. And when you're talking fast cars and twin turbos, you don't have to look any further than Schwartz Performance. Jeff Schwartz grew up not only building cars, but also racing pretty much anything with wheels on it. From motorcycles to sports cars to full-on race cars, Jeff not only raced it, but usually won with it too. As more wild and innovative vehicles kept rolling out of his shop, it wasn't long before his chassis and engines were generating as much buzz as his driving had done.
I raced SCCA and IMSA. I ran showroom stock. I was Rookie of the Year in 1982 SCCA. I had pole position at the runoffs and set 5 national track records. I won the June sprints. Goodyear used my name in tire ads and magazines and stuff, so it was really cool.
Specializing in state-of-the-art chassis and suspensions for vintage muscle cars, this is where Schwartz Performance really began to make a name for themselves, because their chassis fit right under a classic muscle car and make them handle, turn, and stop like a road race car.
People are starting to find out about us and know that our product offers ride quality of a German luxury car with sports car handling. So when you can take an old muscle car to do that, and it's pretty impressive.
Schwartz Performance also builds some of the hottest engines around.
We have a lot of cars that are street-driven cars with over 1,000 horsepower in our chassis, and we haven't had any issues with them.
And specializes in turbo setups and complete engines for exotic cars as well as hot rods. So, having Schwartz Performance build a twin turbo system for the SLC is a natural fit. The first thing we did was get some parts from Turbonetics so we could lay out the system. Now, this includes a couple of polished T-Series turbos to supply boost and corresponding heat shields to help keep heat down. We also got an assortment of fittings, elbows, and clamps, as well as 2 wastegates and intercooler cores, and a bunch of silicone hose, elbows, and adapters to connect everything together. Then it was a matter of deciding the location of the turbos, and then fabricating the tubing from the exhaust manifold to the turbo. Now, I know this is a strange looking pipe and it still needs to be ground down and polished, but there is a method to the madness. The stock exhaust manifold is going to go right here. Then the tubing bends through the chassis and allows the turbo to mount to the outside of the frame rails out of the way. The wastegates went the other direction and are mounted inside the frame rails. Now, you don't want this exhaust pipe supporting all the weight of the turbocharger, so we're going to have to come in here and fabricate some brackets to help support the weight of the turbos. The intercoolers were also put together by Schwartz Performance, and they're going to fit down into these side scoops to take advantage of the airflow. Now, obviously, we're going to have to build some brackets to hold these in place and some shrouding to make sure that the airflow goes through the intercooler and not around it. Then, we still need to design an exhaust system run out here underneath the axles and out the back of the car, finish up all the intake tubing, and stick some better rods and pistons in the engine so that doesn't disintegrate on us. Now, I know you're looking at this going, man, that is a lot of stuff. And there is a lot to put in twin turbos on a vehicle. But if you don't want to do this yourself, Schwartz Performance will either have a system or will build you a system for whatever you're working on, even if it's an SLC.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Dake. If you have the dream, we have the tools.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Kevin Fortson from Dothan, Alabama, and his project is a '67 Chevy C10 pickup. Take a look at this. Now, of course, it looked a lot worse than this when he first got it. He paid $100 for it 8 years ago, and immediately him and his dad tore the thing apart, started from the ground up. Here's a shot of him and his dad working on it. Now, as you can see, the chassis was completely restored, painted, brought back to life. Matter of fact, he says he spent so much money on it that the people at LMC Truck probably thought he was an employee for a long time. But the project continued to move forward. Then he hit his first setback. He had to put a couple of kids through college. So the truck sat for about 6 years, but then he and his dad jumped back on it. As you can see here, they got a 350 Chevy in there. It's built, it's ready to go. Then he hit his second setback. He went to the wrong body shop, and that was a $4,000 mistake. Oh, man. Fortunately, he then went to the right body shop, and they put on this killer candy apple red paint job. After that, he had a custom interior put in it, and as you can see, this truck is really starting to come together. Now, Kevin says he hopes to have this thing done this summer and can't wait to take that first drive with his dad. Matter of fact, he says the experience of doing this with his dad, absolutely priceless. Kevin, awesome project. And to recognize it, we hooked up with our buddies at Dake. We are going to give you one of these arbor presses to help you finish that project. Also, to help you keep track of that project, we're going to give you one of our project build books. Also, we're going to give you a year's subscription to Drag Illustrated just in case you want to take that truck out and smoke the tires on it a little bit. Now, the rest of you guys, if you want to get your project featured on the show, you got to send it in to What Are You Working On? We'll do our best to get it on the air. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook, see what kind of crazy things we're doing off the show. All right, we got more things to work on. I know you've got stuff to work on, so get out there. Start working on something.